In assignment 4, we look at the balance sheet of the company. Now, remember, the balance sheet is a presentation of assets, liabilities, and stockholders' equity at a point in time. So, the amounts that are reflected on this statement are only good as of that date. It is not a flow statement, it is strictly a point in time statement. Now, there are 3 documents to be completed for grading in this assignment. Uh, 2 are Word documents uh, in which you'll calculate some percentages, look at some changes, and uh, derive some of the reasons for the changes that have occurred in the balance sheet accounts. Um, on the primary statement, the first question you ask is to compute the percentage growth in assets. That is total assets this year minus total assets last year. That difference divided by last year's total asset amount. That'll give you a percent increase or decrease in total assets. Then you're asked to uh, explain what were the primary reasons for the changes. Now, what I would suggest to answer this question is that you use the Excel spreadsheet that you've completed. Look at the categories and try to determine what changes in those categories that are shown in the uh, analysis of the balance sheet caused the biggest changes in total assets. Now, we're strictly looking at the asset side when we answer this question, so don't look to the uh, liability and equity section to answer this question. Uh, the next question again goes back to the common size Excel worksheet. There, what it asks you is what balance sheet accounts changed the most in comparison to the prior year. Now, in this instance, we're looking at assets, liabilities, and equity. So be sure that you look at all 3 of those categories when you're answering this question. The next document that we are dealing with looks at, again, some ratios and information related to um, the balance sheet as a whole. The first one is ask you to define the accounting equation, and that's nothing more than to show that assets are equal to liabilities, what we owe people outside of the company, plus equity. What's remaining, what would be available to the stockholders of the company should something happen. The next thing we do is we calculate the current ratio. Now, remember, the current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. So it's not total assets, it's current assets and it's current liabilities. Um, this question also asks you to state what does this tell you about a company. Now, in this instance, answer this question from the standpoint of what does the current ratio tell you about any company, not necessarily the company that we're analyzing this semester. Um, it then goes on to ask you whether or not the current ratio has improved or gotten worse, and that answer would be specific to the company that we're analyzing this semester. The next question is relates to debt to total assets. And in this instance, what we're looking at is we're looking at the liability and equity section of the balance sheet. Total liabilities are those current and long-term liabilities. So be sure that you pick up the total liabilities. In other words, the easiest way to calculate that is to take total assets, subtract stockholders' equity, and then you've got total liabilities that are applicable to the company. Um, do that calculation for both years. There is again then a question, what does this tell you about a company? This is a general question, not specifically directed toward the company we're analyzing this semester. The last question asks you whether or not it's the calculation that you've made has improved or uh, worsened in comparison to the prior year. This is a specific to the company we're analyzing question. So be sure that you answer it in that manner. The third document that we have to prepare for this assignment is the common size analysis of the balance sheet. Now, be very careful when you're looking at. There's some notes on the spreadsheet that you need to read very carefully. Uh, we do not include restricted cash in the cash balance, and so be careful with that. Notice that the worksheet says trade accounts receivable. Now, the reason for this is later on we're going to calculate some turnover ratios and that sort of stuff, and so we don't want to use non-trade receivables in that analysis. There is a note about how to calculate other assets, so be careful with that. And then there's a note about stockholders' equity. Now, the last piece of this is a trend analysis. That is the second page of the Excel worksheet. You don't have to enter any data to enter this. It will pick up automatically from the common size analysis that you do on the previous worksheet. This will help you answer that first question about have assets increased or decreased over the period of time that we're looking at with this company. Um, Hopefully, this will answer most of the questions that you have or might have regarding um, this assignment. As usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thank you.